My Hero Vigilantes Episode 6 gave us the best parody cameos yet. It seems like in this universe, the Avengers were a Yakuza gang, one of the many like overhauled Shiei Hasaikai. But their group, Aregawa Tetsu, actually existed before the advent of quirks. So that's over 200 years of history. Only so many real-world organizations can claim that level of longevity. Even fewer have managed to maintain and transition their power into modern times. So these guys are seriously impressive. But in the anime version, they didn't actually tell us anything about their leader. All of that was cut. His name, Rojiya Yonenaga, is a pun. Rojiya is similar to Rogers, as in Steve Rogers, which is Captain America's name. Meanwhile, Yonenaga contains characters that represent the United States and the military position of Captain. He also has a star inside of a circle on his jacket, which is similar to Cap's logo. Rojiya could hold his liquor, but was a bit drunk. Whenever that happened, he had a habit of taking a bit of public property back home with him, specifically manhole covers. They were his signature weapons called Jay's Lids. He fended off thousands of blades and bullets by simply holding up these 90-pound iron discs. And by chucking one of these lids with the perfect form of a discus thrower, he could split a man in two. Thanks to that, people called him Rojiya the Manhole. And honestly, I see why they cut that part out. The Manhole is a crazy name for a villain. With a name like that, you're either some one-off weakling from One Punch Man or a diabolical menace from the boys. Now, although they're gangsters and Rojiya was willing to accept the societal label of villainy, these sorts of crime families tend to be very considerate and civilized in interesting and often contradictory ways. They had their junior stay by the open manhole until the police showed up. That way, no one would fall in. The name of the man he was drinking with, Tetsu the Tank, is also a pun. The characters in Tetsu can also mean iron, and he definitely had the most character-accurate face of them all. To be fair, Marvel Comics are pretty fluid with character designs from artist to artist anyways. Now, Tetsu wasn't handling his booze nearly as well, and this is probably a nod to Tony Stark's alcohol problem, the infamous demon in a bottle from the comics. Tetsu's quirk allowed him to rapidly equip high-tech laser-firing armor, but the design of his armor was totally overhauled. In the manga, it just looked like the Hulkbuster's Japanese cousin. We actually colored this for a thumbnail of one of our earliest videos on the channel, and I just remember thinking to myself how much of a pain it would be to turn this series into an anime with all these copyrighted references. But now, the suit looks like the Hulkbuster was stolen by Red X from Teen Titans. And I'd like to think that the scar over the eye is somehow in honor of Rojiya, since he has a scar close to his eye. Maybe he sacrificed himself to save Tetsu, and that solidified their brotherhood or something like that. Considering Tony's dynamic with Cap, I think that's a really cool idea. His equip speed being faster than a knife in motion is very impressive. This is an extremely cool quirk, but one that's effectively rendered obsolete by the future of support items. The junior with them was unnamed, so no pun for him. But he's definitely based on Bucky, the Winter Soldier. He wears a domino mask, which is classic Winter Soldier attire. There's a prominent star present on only one of his sleeves. He also sat next to Rojiya during the meeting and called him bro, which reflects the dynamic between Cap and Bucky. His quirk even let him turn one of his arms into metal. Next, the name Soji the Hammer is also a pun. The beginning of Soji is pronounced just like the Japanese pronunciation of Thor. The tattoo on his shoulder means thunder. His construction helmet has wings on the side, and obviously, he's a bearded blonde guy with an electric hammer. The name Haruhasi the Bare-Handed is our final pun. The beginning of Haruhasi is pronounced just like the Japanese pronunciation of Hulk. But this isn't just any Hulk. Thanks to the anime, we have confirmation that this guy is gray, and originally, the Hulk was gray. These days, that identity is synonymous with Joe Fixit, Bruce Banner as a gangster crime lord. After that, the two lower members we saw with Not Bucky are based on Hawkeye and Black Widow. All of the gang's top members were known for having very powerful quirks and even greater teamwork, the latter having been forged through over 100 victories. But they were all cut down by Stendhal because he was prepared. As we established, these guys were no joke. They were down to fight All Might himself. I mean, there's no way they would have won, but the Avengers versus Superman is still a big deal either way. They were seriously a force to be reckoned with. I reiterate that all to say that Stain could have wiped the heroes out if he wanted to. His warped ideology causing him to yap before killing someone was the only thing keeping him from doing the same thing to anyone else. We also received our first and only real look at who Stain was in the real world. Based on his gear, it looks like he might have worked at a place like SeaWorld. And I'm of the impression that this is meant to be a nod to Amagadoki Zoo, Horikoshi's manga series before My Hero Academia. While the main cast belonged to the zoo, the bad guys were from the Ushimitsudoki Aquarium. We saw the Ed Boys reunite at the hospital. Soga was conflicted, but found his resolve when his friends decided not to use Trigger anymore. Now, I'm not sure if this is just a translation, but the wording of Rapt and Moryuru's banter was a bit different. In the anime, Moryuru mentions how the hospital has hot nurses, and Rapt tells him to land himself in the hospital too. While in the manga, Moryuru asks him if there are any hot nurses in the hospital, and Rapt tells him to get himself hurt and find out. Slightly different, but I think the manga version makes a bit more sense. Now, the anime did an amazing job with Soga's scenes. His flashback slideshow really hit. They have to make sure we feel the redemption here. But man, seeing Hachisuka use her quirk like this was terrifying. It totally reminds me of a Black Mirror episode. And the fact that they're force-feeding drugs into his system is heavy metal. Hachisuka pretty much fed a bunch of rare candies to her Sandshrew, forced it to evolve, and made him fight an overpowered Scizor. And I swear, the way Soga looked right here unlocked a childhood memory for me. I know I'm about to sound like Unk, but does anyone else remember the mascot for Honeycomb cereal? Anyways, Koichi pulled up after hearing Soga's outcry. But whereas most pro heroes would assume it's the sound of a villain attacking, Koichi heard it as a cry for help. And Koichi didn't understand the situation at all. He was so surprised to see Stendhal going for the kill that you'd think he slipped into the wrong genre. Even so, he was quick to get involved. But instead of trying to fight like Deku eventually would, Koichi focused on getting Soga to safety. He also showed his resourcefulness by using his quirk to escape even after being knocked down. We had Knuckleduster join the fray too, and this was just incredible. Stendhal actually knew about him, whereas a hero like Eraserhead, who frequented the same area, did not. And he knew enough about Knuckleduster for him to decide that he would prefer not to fight. But oh man, how this fight was handled was brilliant. The mind games that came along with placing that line on the ground were great. It's the sort of thing I always enjoyed about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And Knuckleduster really pushed his face in. Not only that, but he dissed the man's entire existence. And that was super effective. Those words effectively killed Stendhal. But Stain's not going like that. They went blow for blow here, which is insane on so many levels. First and foremost, this man turned into a spider monkey jumping from building to building. I need you to remember that this man's quirk is Blood Curdle. President Mike said it not too long ago. So how the hell is this guy with self-proclaimed above average speed doing all this? Deku had to create Full Cowl and reference Mega Man X to do something on this level. Next, Knuckleduster was matching knives with brass knuckles. The coordination, the accuracy, the speed, the bravery, my goodness. And that leaping from Stendhal was not a fluke. He did it all over again to escape. He also had Knuckleduster's blood. So really, he could have slaughtered them all right then and there. But he let them live as a display of his gratitude for Knuckleduster's lesson. So by virtue of being true heroes, Knuckleduster and Koichi unintentionally created the hero killer Stain. Which is even crazier when you remember that Ida's brother, who Stain crippled, is one of Koichi's friends. Once he was gone, Popstep showed up with medical supplies and ended up tending to her abuser's wounds. Back at his trap house, Stendhal, despite the absurd feats we just witnessed, believed he was severely lacking in speed, power, weapons, and strategy. And like Knuckleduster alliterated, he was looking at his reflection in the mirror, and he found his determination. He was merciless towards Hachisuka and tried to off her immediately, which was quite different from his previous stance towards her. Then he hacked away at his own nose without making a single sound of pain. By mutilating his face like this, he would never be able to live a normal life again. There would be no more hiding from this reality. We also have the poetry that resulted in his new name, as the blood stains will never fade. Alright, now hear me out. Stain is based on Michael Jackson. No, seriously, his hair, how impressively he moves, especially backwards, his outfit being red, the situational and later intentional alteration of his face, the fact that he's looking at the man in the mirror and making a change, a profound dissatisfaction with the status quo, the fact that bloodstains trail behind him is also rather reminiscent of MJ's blood on the dance floor. And for the cover of that, the king is dressed in all red, and his hair is worn in the same way Stendhal had his. Beyond all that, back in the day, Michael Jackson actually wanted to buy Marvel Comics. He really wanted to be Spider-Man. And looking at it now, between Disney's acquisition and the existence of Miles Morales, he was seriously ahead of his time. Lastly, his personal favorite superhero was Morph from X-Men. Morph is a shapeshifter, and when he's not transformed, his face is featureless. Something that seems to have inspired the fact that Stain's normal face is unknown. Oh, and Morph doesn't have a nose. Michael Jackson is by far my favorite recording artist of all time, so when I figured all this out, my mind was blown. But of course, he is not the only inspiration at play here. The name Stendhal originates from the 19th century French novelist who went with that as his pen name, which is what Chizome did. Stendhal's work explored psychological and political concepts, often by way of irony and critiques. And he was even an active soldier in Napoleon's army. Napoleon, like All Might, being a caped hero who rose to the height of his power in the midst of a societal revolution. Not to mention the fact that one of Stendhal's books was the red and the black, which are the colors of the Vigilantes' outfit. Stendhal was a pain for Beten to draw, but he was obsessed with the design. He went for a samurai ninja aesthetic and totally nailed it. Stendhal's top knot coming undone was intended to reflect his constraints finally being removed. This was easily my favorite episode of My Hero Vigilantes yet, and I don't expect that to change for a very long time. But I hope you'll be here to see if that is true or not. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.